What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. I know I normally do my tier list videos on Monday, but honestly I was feeling really sick on Monday, so here we are Tuesday morning. Wanted to go ahead and make our first season one of these tier lists. A bit of an interesting weekend, a couple of wins I didn't expect, a couple losses I didn't expect, and I still think the middle of the ranking of the teams is very murky, but I think we have a pretty clear top four right now and then everybody else. So let's dive in, let's rank the teams into tiers and then go from there. All right, so here's the deal. I don't do the letter thing, I do these little categories. Let me explain how we're doing it a little bit this year. As always, I kind of switch up throughout the year, but this is how we're going to start. We got the top four. I think that one's pretty easy. I've called this Sunday regulars in the past, and actually we're gonna bring that name back because I think it's better than top four. Next up, we have fighting for Sunday. So these are teams I think that are top six, top eight. I think there's gonna be only two teams in this tier this time around, kind of fighting to get to the weekend. Other than that, they're more Saturday style squads getting top six, top eight. Mid pack is everybody else who is kind of fighting for a champ spot. Redacted is probably one we're doing just for this. You'll see in a minute what team I'm putting in there. And then missing pieces are your bottom feeders of the CDL. People I think that are getting last this split. All right, so let's get into it. We're gonna start with LAG, and I have to unfortunately put these guys in missing pieces. They lost to Carolina, they lost to Minnesota, and in general, I'm a little concerned about sort of this team's ability to slay consistently online. I know the Minnesota loss was a round 11, game 5, and the Carolina one went 4, so it's not like they're getting World Star like 3-0'd off the map. I'm just a little concerned that, again, this is just not going to be a high slaying team. Preston's not off to the best of start, probably the most disappointing of the 4 players on their squad. But Linz had a pretty good first series, a solid second series as well, so you'd like to see that. There's pieces and things to build upon here, but I'm just very concerned that this is just going to be what we thought this team was going to be. We're gonna have difficulty slaying. And listen to their upcoming schedule this week. LA Thieves in Optic Texas. I hate to say it, LAG. I think you're going 0-4. We'll see. We'll see if they can somehow upset one of these teams this weekend going into the holiday break. And joining them in the missing pieces category is going to be the Vegas Falcons. I don't really, again, blame. We've talked with them in the past with Vegas. I don't really blame. I think that Vegas is having a disappointing season. I think this is what it is. You can watch these players play like they barely throw grenades. They have 3 ARs on the map. They're so far, I think, from being like a super competitive team. But I thought they might get world starred this first weekend, and they actually were fairly competitive in this series against Miami and Carolina, able to win actually a map off of Carolina. It's just tough for me to see wins, and they play Toronto and FaZe this week. So good luck, man. Good luck, Vegas. It's going to be probably an 0-6 week for y'all. All right, so let me put Cloud9 here, and we're going to name this category Online Cheese. This is kind of me trying to respect a little bit the situation they had this week, having to play on, the Chicago server, and like all that crazy stuff going on with Thieves and Optic. And it sounded like they also didn't do themselves a service because they were contemplating forfeiting both games, never got a real warm up. I think it goes both ways, right? I think they could have done a better job, really trying to at least put themselves in the best mental shape going into matches where it was really handicapped against them. So let's see if that gets resolved this week, and let's see if they can lock back in against Minnesota and Carolina, who are 2 teams they should be able to get at least 1 win off of. But if they go 0-2 this week and they're 0-4, we're going to have a very different conversation about C9, one that makes them the most disappointing team of the split so far. Speaking of disappointing teams so far, we got Atlanta FaZe, and I'll move them up to Sunday regulars because they got a cupcake schedule this week. This week, they're playing Carolina and Vegas, and they have Minnesota, Boston, and Cloud9 the rest of the split. So they're going to be, I think, overcome this 0-2 start and get 5 wins. If they lose this week, we'll have a little bit of a different conversation. Like players in Carolina, like TJ, haven't beaten these players in 6 years. Vegas, they played Atlanta FaZe. Actually, this is kind of really funny. It is a kind of a rematch for me, WC. The FaZe did kind of handle them pretty easily in that one at group stage. I think FaZe is going to go 6 on map count this week. There's a tough start to the season. I think the Toronto match was a disappointing L. The Thieves won. They got off to a slow start in that series, but they battled back. They could have crumbled pretty hard after losing that Skyline round 11, but they battled back in the control. They battled back in the rewind hardpoint. They just came up short, in the Vault S&D. I think a player in particular that needs to have a better weekend is Draza. I know Zach is sort of the gap fill on this team. He's kind of trying to make a lot of stuff happen, but I think he lost a lot of 1v1s and gave himself a lot of bad timings individually that I think could be improved on, especially in that last round of S&D on Vault. So if he can work on that stuff and get back to being a difference maker, I think FaZe will be fine. One more point for FaZe. They went 0-3 in search this first week, which is unusual for them. They're obviously usually a pretty elite S&D team. So let's see with some softer competition, they start to chip away at that 0-3 hole they put themselves in the game mode. But if they lose this week, we'll have a different conversation. And for me, if I have to rank the top 4 right now, just purely because they're 0-2, they are going to be 4th. Now, here's a team I thought actually would be a lot lower in these standings after this week, but I'm putting them in the mid-pack. That is the Boston Breach. I want to, as always with a couple of these teams, kind of note that, you know, it is an unbalanced schedule, but Boston, to me, had a mixy week. They had to beat Optic, which they did in Game 5. They lost to Minnesota, which they did in Game 5. So in both series, they battled. They got an upset. They lost to a team, I think, that's probably most likely sort of at their level. So I think Boston maybe being in that kind of like fringe champs kind of contender, or contending to make a spot for champs, maybe making a deep run on a weekend to like top 6 kind of spot. They're kind of there. I thought they'd be a bottom feeder, but really good performances this week from virtually everybody on the team. Like Cammy had his moments. Probably their best player, honestly, last week. Wake was solid at times. Snoop. Purge gap filling. You want to see Purge play a little bit more, but you know, it is what it is. I thought for Boston fans, you got to like what you saw across really all game modes. They battled, man. They battled. Let's see what they can do. Their upcoming matches this week are Miami and Vancouver, who are teams at the level. I'm going to put them in mid-pack. We'll talk about that. So we'll see if they can stack up against those teams, or is it just a hot start and they kind of falter, and then they got Carolina, FaZe, Thieves coming up after that. You know, we'll see what they can do with this good start. All right, let's talk Miami Heretics. I'm going to put them in the mid-pack. And I think I'm going to put them in front of Boston just based on talent and how I think it'll probably net out. They had 2 matches. The first one against Vegas. On Saturday, they handled pretty cleanly, 1-3-0. Then they lost to Vancouver in a Game 5 mixed fest. I think this is what I kind of expected from Miami, kind of level wise. I thought their control was actually pretty good this week, which is nice to see because they were kind of an iffy control team last year. We'll see how the other games kind of break out from there, because they won a search, but they also lost 2, and I expect them to be a better SD team than that. But I think if you're a Miami fan, you can't be unhappy with the last week of results. They got Boston coming up. That's a fun one. You know, we didn't expect Boston to be that high. We just talked about that. And then Toronto Ultra. So I think this could be a world where they go 0-2. Could also be a world where they go 1-1 or 2-0. So let's see what Miami can do. But they're about where I expected. In the mix, top 6, maybe top 8, maybe higher. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Toronto Ultra. Probably one of the more fun teams from the last week. Probably one of the teams I think probably had the best week and needed and really needed this early confidence with the nice victory against Atlanta FaZe and Ford Maps. Really popping off there. And then had to grind one out against Vancouver Surge, but they got it done in the end. If you had told me before the weekend that Toronto Ultra would be one of the best S&D teams in the game, statistic-wise, I would have been definitely surprised. Maybe not entirely 100% surprised, but I would have been, I'd have been like, like FaZe or someone else. But no, Toronto 3-0. They split the hard points this weekend as well as split the controls. So the respawn, still work in progress. I don't think Joe Deceives had like his best week of matches of all time, but CleanX was unbelievable, especially against FaZe, and Ben Beans had his moments as well. So you love to see that if you're a Toronto fan. W week. They have a bit of a fun one coming up with the match against Vegas. They should be able to take care of them. And then Miami, they got Minnesota, LAG, Texas. I think Toronto could have 6 wins in the split. And I feel like they, right now, to me, of like the teams below FaZe, Optic, and Thieves, I think they are sort of that 4th team I'm adding in the Sunday regulars for sure. All right, let's talk the Vancouver Surge. I'm going to put them right here. It's just, I'm going to say in no order for the mid-pack, because I don't really know how these teams kind of all line up amongst each other. They're all going to, as you notice, they're all going to kind of have beaten some version of each other or played them each other this week. And, I think it's a little bit of a mess. But Vancouver, I thought had a good week. They lost a pretty deep series versus Toronto, and then they won a deep series against Miami. So they didn't really have a definitively like amazing week, but they really looked good in all 3 game modes, kind of chipping away there. I thought the slaying wasn't great this weekend. I thought Abuza, probably one of the most disappointing players this weekend, did not get off to a hot start. 0-4 looked improved though. So, we talked about in the preseason, they need 0-4 to He was that guy in Respawn. I thought he was pretty good. And Hicksy and Nasty had their moments. But we need to see Abuza step up if this team wants to get to that next level, because we've already seen them last year beat a top 6 team, and then they just never were in a position to beat a good team. And then, yeah, so let us see what they can do coming up this week against Optic Texas, who, you know, look maybe a little bit vulnerable. And then Boston, a 2-0 week for Vancouver would be really interesting. But I think likely we'll see a 1-1 with the loss to Optic and a win against Boston. Vegas, Carolina, Minnesota. I think Vancouver definitely been making winners bracket for Major 1. All right, next up, the Carolina Royal Ravens, and I might be tripping by putting them here, to be honest, but I am putting them in this spot. I really don't know how to rank a lot of the teams. There's 5 or 6 teams in the middle here because of the Cloud9 situation, but I do want to give Carolina their flowers for going 2-0. I want to color it by saying that they beat LAG and Vegas, who are the 2 teams I have in the bottom of this tier list, and both were 3-1s, but Gwyn and Slasher had an incredible week. I think Austin in particular, I did not expect him to play it's good, especially in hard points. So W Thanos there. TJ and Reese had their moments, but I think the biggest thing for me is they did not lose a hard point this weekend, which is really, really important because they play FaZe and they play Cloud9 this week. I assume Cloud9 will actually try or have the server issue resolved. And Atlanta FaZe is a tough one just because, well, a couple players on here haven't beaten FaZe in a while, so might be coming back down to earth, but I want to tip the 2-0 start. We'll put them in like the 5th or 6th spot if you're going to rank all these teams. Whatever. Don't overthink it. Don't complain too much in the comments. I'm just trying to give them their flowers for at least taking care of business this week. And we'll see against better opposition this week what they can do. Boston, Vancouver, Miami after that. So they're playing the mid-pack teams, man. We'll know where Carolina is level-wise amongst these next couple of tiers. All right, the other team I'm going to add in here is the Minnesota ROKKR. I was debating if I put them in front of like Carolina or not. I'm going to put them behind Carolina just because they beat Boston. They beat LAG, both game 5s, both round 11s. They won by the seat of their pants in both series, but won again. Ready for Sunday's tier? I'm giving the teams that went 2-0 credit for being 2-0. I will say my concern for Minnesota is, you know, these series were back and forth. Nobody on their team ended with above a 1 KD. I think Paul got pretty close, like that 0.99, a couple decimals. But I think Gio and Estrio in particular at times did not look good this weekend. So I'm, you know, maybe a little too early for me to put them here, and they had a lot of pressure coming up. Cloud9 and Thieves this weekend, Toronto and FaZe in Vancouver after the minor tournament. We're gonna give Minnesota their time in the sun, but I think the clouds might be coming soon, and I expect them to fall back down to earth here. But again, wanted to give them respect for beating who was in front of them, going 3-1 in 4 searches, like just trying to at least give them credit for playing good this weekend before we start talking smack about them when they inevitably lose some of these games. All right, Optic Texas. Toronto went 2-0, FaZe 0-2, Optic 1-1. We'll kind of rank it like that. We'll get to Thieves obviously at the end here. You know, this is what we talked about with Optic. It's like, how seriously are they going to take online? You've heard some of their players kind of insinuate or say directly on stream in the last few days that their practice hasn't been the best. I think Shotzi said that in the post-game interview after they beat Cloud9. They lost to Boston, obviously, in that game 5. I think Optic will be fine. I think they just got to lock in, and Kenny played probably some of the worst we've seen him play online this week, so he's got to kind of focus up and you know, play a little bit better. They got Vancouver and LAG this weekend. They should be able to take care of business against those teams. Vegas, Thieves, and Toronto after the holiday break. So 2-0 should be here, locked back in the next 3 weeks. You got a good performance at the minor tournament. Those Toronto and Thieves matches are not going to be easy. So with that one loss to Boston, they need to really be perfect over these next 3 games. They lose one more game, especially this weekend, and you have to beat Thieves or Toronto, or you're like 3-4 on the precipice of not being winners bracket. So just an FYI there, because this isn't the world's easiest schedule, especially at the end here, coming up with how we think Thieves and Toronto are. That being said, though, Shotzi had an MVP level performance this week. So if you're a Shotzi fan, you're an Aches hater of him saying that Shotzi's not a superstar, well, he had a good one this week. Then finally going to put LA Thieves, a 2-0 week. They look like the clear #1 team right now. Really enjoying, I think, the sort of honeymoon phase that comes with making a new super team squad. There's really not that many weaknesses to like punch a hole in with this team. I would say that over the course of these 2 series against Cloud9 and against FaZe, they have thrown away some advantages to win some maps. The S&D on Vault against Cloud9, the Skyline Hardpoint against FaZe, the Vault Control against FaZe. So that's just a minor thing with Thieves, just trying to play 12 minutes of good COD instead of 10 and sort of limping at the end. So that'll be fixed with time and prac. But it sounds like they're just sort of flying right now. They're just in cruise control. And it's just the thing we talked about these. Like, they're going to be a good team. They're probably going to win a couple events this year. How they deal with adversity. Haven't really faced much. Yeah, I don't really count online matches against FaZe's quote unquote adversity, because I think it's really just comes down to land when you're playing a top team. And they got LAG in Minnesota this week. So Optic Texas, when they get back from the holiday break in the minor tournament, will be their next really big square up that they have. Miami and Boston after that. So I think if you're a Thieves fan, life's good. Life's chilling. Your number one team. Enjoy it. Looking like right now, if they continue this, they will probably be your Major 1 winners at Madrid, but that is a month and a half from now. A lot can happen between now and then. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of the video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.